Hello, my friend. Thank you for joining me for part 3 on As It Relates to Podcasting, where we are talking all about LinkedIn in this 4-part series with my friend, Rich Perry, who is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to LinkedIn marketing, building your personal brand, and becoming that thought leader authority that you are so desperately desiring to be in a good way. I say desperately desiring to be in a very, very good way. Now, in today's conversation, we are talking all about unleashing LinkedIn's content power, creating impactful posts, newsletters, blogs, and your personal branding. In this conversation, we are talking about all of the different types of content that thrive on LinkedIn, the different secrets to capture your audience's attention and spark that really engaging conversation that you're so wanting on your posts. And we're also talking about publishing high quality content that's going to resonate with your target audience, positioning yourself as that trusted industry leader and voice to help you build that brand credibility. We're also going to be talking about the power of LinkedIn newsletters and LinkedIn blogs and how they can be a game changer in establishing direct connections with your audience and providing them with an exclusive insight into your super valuable content. Now, before we get into this conversation, I want to introduce Rich to you briefly in case you haven't listened to the last 2 episodes, just so you know who you're talking to today. Now, Rich Perry is a business communications and marketing strategist, and he helps you build the brand your customers will trust. Entrepreneurs who have an important message to share hire Rich when they want to design an optimized and powerful strategy to reach their audience, build brand authority, and turn casual visitors into lifelong customers. Rich co-authored a book called Bankroll Your Mind, which is an international #1 bestseller, and he was also a contributing author in 3 other books that focus on personal development. He's also a writer for Entrepreneur and other online publications as well. So join us as we get into clarifying your message, establishing your unique brand voice, and leaving that memorable impression on LinkedIn and beyond. If you're ready to get into this episode today, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode with us over here, and so you don't miss the last part of our 4-part series, since this is part 3. Thank you so much for tuning in to this conversation. My gratitude is endless for you being here and also for you sharing these conversations with another podcaster, another creator, another marketer that needs to hear this message. So without further ado, let's get into part 3 with Rich. Rich, thanks so much for joining me back for episode 3 of our 4-part series.
I'm excited, Simona. Thank you.
Me too. I'm really excited. I think this one is probably going to be I always like talking about personal branding, and I always like talking about the basics and the things that you need to get started, because I think it's important to start with why you're doing something and then also expanding from there. So in this episode today, we are talking all about content, and content specifically as it relates to LinkedIn that performs well through the lens of podcasting, right? Because we are talking to podcasters on this show. So I want to talk first about the types of content that do well on LinkedIn, and maybe in there, if you could differentiate between why videos versus text versus photo posts might do better or might not, or what have you.
So first things first, I encourage you, the listener, to have a wide range of content. Okay. I don't exactly have the numbers as far as, whether text does better than video or whatever. I don't have those numbers in front of me. However, what I will encourage you to do is to utilize LinkedIn to share all different forms of content. And what I'm talking about is it gives you the opportunity to have your regular posts. You can create articles, long form content native to LinkedIn, which is a really good benefit if you're someone who doesn't have a website for your business or for your podcast. Okay, you can create long form articles right there native to LinkedIn. It also gives you the opportunity to upload photos that will capture that viewers' attention. Gives you the opportunity to upload videos. Okay, if you shoot a reel on Instagram, repurpose it and share it on LinkedIn. I do it all the time. All right.
Okay.
And then the other thing.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there won't be like on Facebook, you can search for reels. Okay. And obviously on Instagram, you can too. There won't be like a specific reels search on LinkedIn, but you can certainly upload that video to LinkedIn. I do it all the time. Yeah, it might be branded for the Instagram thing, but who the heck really cares at the end of the day? If it's good content, it's good content, right?
Yes.
The other thing, as we were talking about in the last episode, Simona, one thing that you can do for our podcast listeners out there is you can put your best podcast episodes right in your work experience area as you're promoting your podcast. So you go into your work experience area and you say, I'm a podcast host of such and such podcast. Here's what we talk about, blah, blah, blah. Here's the link. Now you're in there and you can showcase some of your best episodes that people can find when they go back to your profile. So it gives you the opportunity to create all different forms of content.
Okay, this is very interesting because I haven't tested a whole lot of different content when it comes to LinkedIn, but I know that you can do, I know you can do your traditional posts, like videos, text posts, and posts with photos. That seems pretty standard. Now, when it comes to creating content, especially as a podcaster, it's already a lot to create content for most of these platforms, right? Luckily for us, what you use on Instagram, you can typically just repurpose on Facebook, and you take the same reel or whatever and you put it on LinkedIn, you put it on TikTok. But I know that LinkedIn has different specs for different things. And so do you know at all, or have you seen this in stuff that you've posted, should you have separate graphics that are specifically designed for LinkedIn, like those longer posts that are more rectangle in style? Does that stuff matter? Does the algorithm care if it fits the formatting? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I don't know if I have that information right in front of me as far as, is LinkedIn going to penalize you because you used a different dimension? I don't have that information. I was just curious. In my experience, I see a lot of people posting that typical square ratio post, right? They have a text post, they upload the photo as well, just to grab that user's attention. I've had tons of times when they performed well, and I mean that I get engagement on my posts, and I try to always have a photo with it as long as it relates. So as far as, will this post perform better because you use a square photo versus a rectangular one, I really don't have that information in front of me. But to my knowledge, I haven't seen any issues with it.
There's no pushing your content down just because it doesn't have X, Y, and Z. No, that makes total sense. And I think the algorithm, it doesn't matter what platform you're talking about, the algorithm is so complicated because it changes all the time. So it's almost impossible to know what the for sure answer of that would be. You know what I mean? Because it's on one day, yeah, sure. On Monday it could be this, and then by Wednesday it could be this. You know what I mean? So that's totally cool. Okay, so I think this is really, really, oh yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. I will, and I think this goes back to episode number 1. If you're going to post video or photos, especially, make sure it's high quality. Okay. Don't post this photo or a picture of something like that is all pixelated and looks like it was created by a 6-year-old. That's probably not going to, or I don't know about the performance, but it's certainly not going to help you out with branding. Okay. And I say that because I've seen some photos where I'm just like, what was the thought process behind that one? Right? Who did you hire to do your graphics? Hire someone else. Okay.
Fire them.
So I may not have the information about the dimensions and performance, but as far as branding goes, make sure that the content you're putting out is always professional. Make sure it looks like it was created by a professional person and it's going to be professional to represent your brand. If that's the best advice I can give you.
I love that. No, I think that's so important because it's easy to just slap something together, put it online and not really give it any thought. But you have to remember, how does that align back to your personal brand? How does that align back to your message, to what you're wanting to share? And I think that it lends itself really well to how do you want people to think about your podcast, right?
Sure.
when they see your podcast content all over the internet, do you want people to look at your content and be like, oh my God, the quality of that is really good. Even if the video quality isn't 100%, everything else around it is really good. It was edited great. It was produced properly. You know what I mean? Like the colors were clear and it makes sense. So I think that that's really important.
Think about it like real quick. I'm sorry. Think about
no, please.
You're walking into a restaurant and half the lights are out. And then, the signage is broken outside and you get inside and the menu has ketchup stains and the seats are torn up. Like, I'm going to walk back outside. Like, that's not an eatery where that's not an establishment I want to give my money to. And the same way with your business, okay? It's what is the image you are projecting on the outside so that when they come inside, AKA like getting to know you, there's that alignment, that professionalism is projected on the outside. They come in, it's the same on the inside. Oh, this is someone I want to do business with. So I just wanted to say that.
No, I'm glad that you did because I think it's really valuable. And I want to bounce a little bit into talking about blogs and newsletters. So like, I don't know, am I dreaming this up? But like, can you create newsletters on LinkedIn?
You are not dreaming it up. Yes, you can do that.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, take a step back. You need to enable the creator setting on your profile. Okay. So when you go into your profile, look in there's your headshot right there. Right below that is like the about me section or whatever like that. In between there, when you're on your own page, you're gonna see something that says creator profile enable. Okay. It's going to give you that little toggle switch. Now, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I have a friend that I'm working with. He doesn't yet, at this moment in time and space, he doesn't have that ability to enable the creator function. I believe the magic number is like around the 150 range for either connections or followers. It might be followers, okay? Once you cross that threshold of that magic number of like 150 or whatever it is, okay, then you can enable the creator button. Now, what the creator button allows you to do, it allows you to live stream, okay? But here's the caveat, is you can only live stream to LinkedIn with a third-party platform like a StreamYard or Riverside or something along those lines, okay? But it gives you the ability to do so. Another thing you can do is you can create events, like audio events, kind of like how Twitter Spaces, okay?
Yeah.
Another thing that it allows you to do is to create the newsletters, which is what you just asked, Simona. So I just wanted to throw that out there. The only way you can create the newsletters, you need to enable the creator function on your profile. Now, once you've done that, then you get access to these other cool things that everyone else doesn't get to do, right?
Okay, so how do they work? I know they're not the same as blogs, but how do they work and how are they different, the newsletters versus blogs?
Excellent
and then we
question.
Can talk about in our last episode, we can talk more about like the specific strategy that you could take creating all of this content on LinkedIn. But I'm curious, like the differentiating factors and then the synergies between them.
Excellent. So functionally, okay, to go in and do the thing, it's the exact same. It's just a matter of pressing a button, okay? So the way that you go in to create a long form piece of content, a blog post native to LinkedIn, is you go in and you say like, you click the article button, right? And then it takes you to the page, and then you say, what's the title? You put in a photo, and then you write your article, and then you press publish, and then boom, you've created an article on LinkedIn. It's the exact same thing for newsletter, except once you've enabled the creator button, you can then go in and then you can initiate the newsletter feature. Okay. So what you would do once you've enabled the newsletter, okay, here's how you do it. You go in same way. Again, same process. You go in and say, I want to create an article. Now, once you're there, it's going to say, okay, you're here. Do you want to do the article or is this a newsletter? So then you would say, oh no, I want to create the newsletter. So you have to hit the article button first, get to that spot. And then once you're there, it's going to prompt you again. Is this an article or is this a newsletter? You're going to say, no, it's a newsletter. Now it's your first time doing it. Then you have to go through the process real quick of naming the newsletter, figuring out the cadence. Is it going to be a
Right.
daily thing, a weekly thing, a bi-weekly thing, a monthly thing? Okay. It's going to
Right.
ask you some questions because you need to set it up, right? So it's going to
Right.
ask you a couple questions. Once you've set it up, then it's going to say, yay, you've created your first newsletter. So then once you publish it out, okay, you've written the newsletter, you've hit that publish button, and then LinkedIn then sends it out to all your people saying, hey, Rich Perry has created a newsletter. Do you want to subscribe? And then all the people that subscribe from then forward will then get a notification every time. So my newsletter is bi-weekly. Okay. So every time I publish a newsletter, my people are notified, hey, Rich Perry just released the newest edition of his newsletter. Click this link to read it. Okay. So that's the cool thing. So if you publish an article, they only find out if they see you posting about it, right? Okay. But if you sign up for the person's newsletter, you subscribe to their newsletter, every time you publish that newsletter, they will be notified.
Okay. Now, do you get their contact information, like their emails and stuff like that? Because like one of the biggest things with, traditional email marketing that like a benefit is that you own quote unquote, those email addresses and stuff like that. So I'm guessing maybe you don't because it's probably happening through their profiles.
That is correct. So that would be the one downfall to a traditional email marketing platform like a MailChimp or
right.
The other ones, right? Constant Contact, things like that, is because when you enable that email marketing platform, yes, you are correct, Simona. You own that person, or not own it, but you collect that person's contact information because you're using it in your own space, on your website or on your blog or whatever. Because it's all done native to LinkedIn, you're not going to get that person's phone number or their email address and find out those intimate details that you might want with your own email platform. Now, the one cool thing that I see as a benefit, okay, because a while ago I was like, I was of that mindset of why would I want an email newsletter when I don't as you said, own the person's email address and I can't reach out to them with, the newest and latest and greatest, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
However, then I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe those people trust it more. Maybe there's a certain segment of people that trust the fact that they know they're not giving you your email address. Everything is done native to LinkedIn. You're leveraging LinkedIn's trust factor to then subscribe to the newsletter. Maybe it's someone who doesn't use email that often or doesn't check their email that often. I don't know. I know that sounds silly, but it's possible.
No,
you know what I'm saying? There might be that.
It doesn't sound silly because there's some people who I just see their stuff and I'm like, delete, delete, delete. Like, I don't mean it in a rude way. It's just like, I'm not interested. You know what I mean? Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And I thought I'm going to try it out because there might just be that trust factor. And here's another thing that I like about it too is, and I'm sure, you can relate, Simona, and your listeners out there. Yes, when you have your own email marketing service, yes, you own, you've collected that person's email, right? But you don't really know who they are. Like, yeah, you have their email and you're in their inbox, but you don't know what they look like. You don't really know those details about them. But the thing that's cool about LinkedIn newsletter is I know exactly who has subscribed, right? And I can go to their profile and really build that relationship so that if I put out this newsletter and I know that person's a subscriber, I might reach out to them a couple days later. Hey, did you happen to read the newest edition of my newsletter? What did you think? And continue that communication. Yeah, if you've got hundreds and thousands of subscribers, you're probably not reaching out to all those people. But I think that it adds that opportunity to continue those relationship building strategies. And I'm not
that deeper communication.
Right. I'm not pitting one email service versus the LinkedIn service. I think they're both extremely valuable, and how you're using them is up to you. However, I saw the benefit of it, and that was why I started a newsletter, because
I love it.
Of the marketing strategy and the value that I put on LinkedIn.
But it's also not to say that you can't do both. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like you can still have your freebies that, your free downloads that lead into email sequences and then, whatever. It's not to say that you can't do both, right? Just maybe, and you can totally create this, and your strategy could be something totally different. Like, maybe in your LinkedIn posts or newsletters or blogs, maybe you're sharing information that you wouldn't typically share in your actual newsletter. Or maybe you're sharing about, your new podcast episodes as they go live, or something really cool about like, a guest or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can have different strategies for each. And you can even say like at the bottom of that newsletter, like, if you want more tips on X, Y, and Z, head on over to my actual newsletter. Like you can use them in tandem. So I think that is a really cool thing too. And then you have this like whole idea of it being like no fuss. It's just in the same platform and you don't even have to worry about it. Same with the blog.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, it's just benefits, it's just opportunities to grow and relate and build those relationships with your network.
I love that.
So I see them as benefits.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I love that so much. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about, before we wrap up this episode, let's talk a little bit about using keywords and then using hashtags. I don't really know how to use either of those on LinkedIn. Are there specific keywords that you should be taking and putting in your content without keyword stuffing? So similar to like a podcast episode, if you have a new, and actually, as I was just thinking about this, like you could totally have every new podcast episode could be a new blog post, right? Like you could have a new blog post embedded with the new episode for people who don't want to go to your website. So I think that's really cool too. I was thinking about that, and I thought maybe someone would think that's valuable. But so how do you leverage using keywords on LinkedIn? Is it more of like, because like you said, you can search, so it's got to be a search engine in some capacity, right? So yeah, benefits of keywords, and then how do you use hashtags on there? Like, is there like a certain amount that you should use? Specific ones you should use? I don't know. You tell us.
in both cases, it's you want to do it in a way that gets the point across, okay? That helps you to get found through the search, okay? But that it, again, as you said, it doesn't make it sound like it's stuffing. Like if the keyword is business coach, and it's a post of 100 words and 13 of the words are business coach, there's nothing you can say using the word 13 times out of 100 that doesn't make it look shady, that doesn't make it look like we were
like red flag.
We were forcing this word. And if you're listening to the audio and not seeing the video, I'm punching. Like you're force feeding these words down the throat of the reader. Like search engines,
they really want you to know.
Right. Search engines keep that in mind, and they're smart enough to know that out of 100 words, this person said the word 13 times. It doesn't sound legit. It sounds shady. It sounds awkward. Like we're going to penalize this person because it doesn't have that user experience. It doesn't have that conversational tone that one would have in a regular conversation. And that is something that the search engines keep in their digital minds, as the way that the algorithms work, right, is they look for that conversational aspect. If it doesn't sound legit, if it sounds like it's force fed, you will be penalized. Okay.
Right.
And also too, like if I stumble upon a post and it just sounds, again, out of 100 words, 13, like it was stuff, like I know that this person was doing it for bad reasons. They were doing it because they were trying to game the system or trying to get my attention, but because it wasn't done in that conversational, that real way of communicating, I'm not even going to give them the time to read what that post or that article was about, because if they can't capture my respect in 100 words, they're certainly not going to get it in 1,000.
Well, that's exactly it. And that's so, so, so key. I think that that leads perfectly into talking about using hashtags. So if you have a post and you're posting your content, do hashtags work the same way on LinkedIn as they do on other platforms? Like, how many should you be using? Like, and should they be very specific, or should they be more in line to like what is on your profile?
Yes, they do. I don't
Okay.
know. Again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's not something that I pay attention to. I don't think that it's one of the platforms that like a Twitter or like an Instagram
Right.
where people rely on them a lot. I know that people
Right.
use them. I know that people rely on them. However, I don't think it, in my experience, this is just Rich Perry's experience, I don't think that people rely on them so much as they do with an Instagram or a Twitter. That's just in my experience. Yes, there are times when I use them, but even I find myself like using them 2 or 3 times out of 10. Like there's just times where I forget because I'm just like, it's not something that when I'm on Instagram and Twitter, I know, hashtags are important. When I'm on LinkedIn, it's like, I'm just putting out great content. And I know that because I've consistently put out good content, that it's going to be found by my immediate connections. And I'm not as concerned with the hashtags. I use them, but I'm not as concerned with them on LinkedIn.
No, I like that, because then that just goes to prove the point of if someone is searching for your content, it's going to come up through the keywords that you're putting in your post anyways.
Right.
Love that. Amazing. Is there anything else in terms of just content itself that we should touch on before we talk about how to actually create that strategy in our last episode?
Once again, be consistent and put out value-based content. The other day, I published an article and I had help with publishing it because I reached out to a bunch of people in my community and I asked them like, hey, I'm writing this article. Do you have any tips that I can add? And I'm thinking I'm going to get like, a 2 or 3 sentence thing. And the 2 people that I had asked gave me like 4, 5, 6 paragraphs work. So they co-wrote that with me, so it's and the article was all about value-based content and relying on that in your marketing strategy. And that's something that I want to encourage the listener right now. You, the listener, focus on putting out regular value-based content to build your brand, to build your leadership platform, to build your thought leadership platform and your authority. It relies on value-based marketing efforts and the content, the good, solid advice and suggestions and tips that you're putting out there for the reader, for the user, for the viewer.
Okay, I have to just expand on that point because I think it's so beautiful. One of the things that I hear a lot in my production clients and my production work or whatever is, why isn't my content getting seen by more people? Or why are more people not listening to my show? Why do I only have X amount of downloads and all this stuff? And when you're creating podcast content, regardless of what platform you're creating it for, you need to also be creating your personal brand at the same time. It's not enough to just post content about your podcast and call it a day. You know what I mean? You need to be adding in different things in your stories behind the scenes, especially like on a platform like Instagram or TikTok. You know what I mean? Like you need to be posting things that are giving people that little extra value for being, part of your community, if you will. I just think that it's so important to really focus on, yes, you have a podcast and yes, your podcast topic talks about X, Y, and Z topic. That said, your podcast is still an extension of whatever personal brand you're creating or whatever brand you're creating. And so, yes, you want to be posting your podcast content, your videos and this and that and whatever, but what else are you adding, right? What other value are you giving? What kind of blogs are you putting on LinkedIn? What kind of newsletters are you sharing on LinkedIn? Are you sharing text-based posts that are actually adding value to somebody's life? Not everything needs to be about your podcast. And so I think this goes into this overall strategy that we're creating, that you need to have that personal brand side and then you need to have that podcast content side, and there's a synergy between the two of them. So if you're looking at why you need more downloads or why your content isn't reaching the specific people you want it to, go back to your message, right? Go back to who it is that you're trying to impact. And sometimes you find that clarity through a podcast, right? Through, my podcast is about this topic. This is what we talk about. And so my messaging, can be done through that lens, but there's so much other content that you can create as well. And so I think it's really important to look at it like from like a holistic point of view, instead of just my 2 videograms, my 1 audiogram, my 3 quotes, and call it a day. Like that's great. And it's good because people will hear about your show, but they want to know the why. Everyone wants to know the why behind why you're doing something. So just thought I would throw that in there.
Absolutely. And to another point that you made, Simona, is allow the person behind the scenes a little bit, and bring them into who you are. It's like when you buy a movie, and at the end there's like the outtakes and there's like the commentary, and you're meeting the actors, and they do like the deleted scenes or like the extra scenes. And it allows you to go beyond the movie because you're immersing yourself in what it took to create that thing. And that's a great way to build that brand loyalty, because they're getting to know the person behind the microphone, so that you're building that relationship. You're keeping it going beyond just that situation.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's so much more than that. And this is what I love so much about this series that we're talking about today, Rich, is like all the episodes are perfectly lending themselves to why you need to build and understand that personal brand in order to have the marketing strategy make sense. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it. Okay. You ready to join me for the last episode?
Ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you love what you heard, be sure to leave a rating and review on your favorite platform. That would be Apple or Spotify. 5 stars if you feel like we deserve 5 stars. I love it. Super grateful for you tuning into this episode. I hope you learned a lot, and I would love to know what you took away from this conversation with Rich and I. Be sure to connect with both of us, and you can find us using the links in the show notes. And don't forget to grab Rich's free LinkedIn marketing strategy quiz, which you can also find in the show notes below. Thanks again so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you on the next one.